In this last video, I want to speak specifically about one of the latest features that we've actually added to DIMLI, and that is the digital asset manager that we actually just call the Lantern search. The reason that we decided to add the digital asset manager directly in is because we have all of this really robust data behind the scenes. We have all these alternate terms, we have all of these different fields that we can search for, and because the data is there, it just makes sense to be able to build a search around all of that important data that you've worked so hard to actually do, instead of having to do an export, flatten the data, and then move it into something that really doesn't understand the idea of a work and an image being separate. So all you have to do to be able to access a Lantern search is just click this and it opens up the search fields. So for instance, again, we'll stick with the Peter Paul Rubens search. And our Lantern search has two different views, and as you can see, what you have is you have in this list view, you have a view of the image itself. You can automatically jump out to the cataloging, and the latest, most useful part of this is also the ability to add to cart. So if I wanted to add this to cart, you can see as soon as I click it, it adds to the cart, and it'll be displayed right up here. The reason that we wanted to do the add to cart is so that you can continue doing searches, building up this group of images, and then download all of the images at one time in a single zip file so that you can have easy access to it. Another thing that is really important about our Lantern search is what you are looking at is all the main works themselves. So for instance, there is one associated image to this work. And that is the case for all of these except for this one. You can see there's two images right here that are associated to this one work record. What we can do is by clicking add to cart at this current time, it's going to add both of those images to the cart. So instead of one image, we now have 3 images in the cart. And if we found one that had 31 images, like that church from previous, or the villa from a previous movie, it would add all 31 to it. The next stage of the digital asset manager will be allowing you to be able to see all of those and be able to click and choose which ones you actually want, and being able to select multiple images that are associated to that work. The other thing too is, while list is very useful, if you hover over, you can see it automatically highlights where the words have been found. And so for instance, titles and names have a higher point score, so if it's in one of those two fields, it goes towards the top of your list. But you also have the ability to look at it as a grid. And so for instance, if you wanted to scroll down through and be able to click on an image, it's going to open those images up and you'd be able to see them in a slightly different way. Now, if you want to be able to download the download zip, you just click from your cart the download zip archive, and it'll send it directly to your desktop or wherever your downloads go. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is I mentioned in previous movies that each person's view is slightly different. I'm going to go in a second out to one of our faculty view so that you can see. But what is really great about this cart is we store all of the information in DIMLI of that image group. I know that there's been a number of times where all of a sudden someone couldn't remember where the image group went, or they accidentally deleted that zip folder, and all of a sudden they'd have to go back and grab all 51 images or what have you. Every time that you add to a cart and hit that zip archive, it's going to store that information, and as I switch to Firefox, it will store it directly down into your downloads so that you can easily access any group of image that you have created using the Lantern search through your cart. Download it. You'll be able to download those directly from your home page as an end user. This opens up all sorts of possibilities for being able to not just download those, but create image groups, and also being able to share out for students or any number of groups. But the Lantern and the cart are one of the best new features in DIMLI, because all of a sudden this data that you've worked so hard for creating when cataloging the images, all of a sudden you are really able to harness that power to be able to download groups of images at one time and still have those groups saved to your record.